Hi, good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us wherever you are today. Welcome to today's OE webinar on publishing open access with Cambridge University Press. My name is Neil Patrick. I'm the Senior Brand Comms Exec for Academic here at CUP. This is the second of 3 live events we've got this week. And just to give a quick shout out to the final session this Friday, there's still a chance to register for that. It's on open access development in China. There'll be a link at the end of the presentation to find some more details on where to sign up for that. So just before we get started, just want to go through a few housekeeping bits. All attendees are in listen-only mode, so you're muted, but you do have the opportunity to submit text questions. If you go to the chat pane of the control panel, you can type your questions in there. Send in your questions at any point. We'll collect them, and then during the Q&A session at the end, we will address them. If we're unable to get through them all at the end of the session, we'll put together a brief Q&A document with some answers in there, and that will be issued to all of the attendees today, alongside the recording of the session as well. If there's any technical difficulties that you're experiencing during the webinar, again, put this in the chat box. We've got a couple of the members of the team in the background just checking this, just in case anyone has any problems, but they'll be able to help you if anything goes wrong. I'm sure everything's going to be fine. If anything does go seriously wrong, we will just message you all and we'll restart the webinar, but I'm sure everything's going to go fine. So I'm going to start now by handing over to Ali Paskins, Publishing Editor in the STM Open Access team, and she's going to begin her presentation.
Great, thanks, Neil. So first of all, just to quickly introduce myself. So I'm a publishing editor at Cambridge University Press, working primarily on the STM open access titles. I work on a mixture of established journals, new launches and flips. I've been at the press for 2 years, and before that I worked at Taylor & Francis for 3 years and Oxford University Press for 5. So today I'm going to just quickly run through what Neil and I will be talking about today. So first of all, I'll start by explaining what open access is. So I'll be running through green versus gold, the different licenses, motivations for publishing open access, the key market drivers, looking at growth of Gold OA, options for authors publishing open access with Cambridge. And then I'll be moving on to look at what is open research. I'll then move on to looking at how to decide on publishing open access. So looking at what your journals and funder policies are, and then looking at Plan S. And then I'll finish by looking at the green sharing policies before passing over to Neil, who will talk through read and publishing agreements in more detail. Next slide, please, Neil. And the next one. Okay, so first of all, what is open access? So open access is making scholarly research permanently available online to view without restriction. Open access was motivated by the birth of the internet and solidified through 3 declarations, the first being the Budapest Open Access Initiative in 2002, in which 34,000 scholars around the world signed an open letter to scientific publishers calling for the establishment of an online public library that would provide the full contents of the published record of research and scholarly discourse in medicine and the life sciences in a freely accessible, fully searchable, interlinked form. Scientists signing the letter also pledged not to publish in or peer review for non-open access journals. And you can see a quote here. This led to the establishment of the Public Library of Science. So PLOS journals launched in 2003, but the dial really changed when PLOS launched PLOS One in 2006, and the growth of open access really began in earnest. Next slide, Neil. So now I'll be looking at the two main open access types and the differences between them. So there's gold and green. So in terms of access, both gold and green mean that articles published under these models are free to access. With gold, this is immediate access on publication, whereas with green, sometimes there is embargo time, and this will be detailed in the journal's guidelines, so do check these if you are unsure. Almost every journal offers reuse under the green open access guidelines, and this should be made clear on the journal or publisher website. Whereas with gold, this is determined by the type of user license the author selects, and I'll talk in more detail about the different licenses on the next slide. In terms of fees, with gold open access, an article processing charge is usually required. This is either paid by the author or on their behalf by their institutional funding body, whereas with green, there is usually no fee. With gold, there are two ways you can publish open access. So this can either be by publishing in a hybrid journal, where the journal is primarily a subscription journal, but with an option to publish open access, or by publishing in a fully open access journal. Funders usually mandate what type of open access their grants can be used for, and often with a preference for gold in a fully open access journal. So again, keep an eye on what the requirements are. For green open access, check your journal guidelines for publishing instructions. Usually authors publish in the journal and then self-archive their paper in a repository. We're often asked the question how free access differs from open access. So subscription articles may be granted free access as part of a marketing campaign, for example. Although both give free access, with free access over open access, there is no reuse, modifying, or sharing allowed, and that's the main difference. Next slide, Neil. Gold open access is reliant at this point on Creative Commons licenses. These licenses govern reuse, a key point of the open access movement. This slide gives an overview of the different options. So first of all, we have CC BY, which is the most accommodating of the licenses offered. Licensees may copy, distribute, display, and perform the work, and make derivative works and remixes based on it, only if they give the author a license of the credits. We then have share alike. So licensees may distribute derivative works under a license identical to the license that governs the original work. We then have non-commercial. So this is where licensees may copy, distribute, display, and perform the work and make derivative works and remixes based on it, but only for non-commercial purposes. And then we have no derivative works. So this is where licensees may copy, distribute, display, and perform, but only verbatim copies of the work, not derivative works and remixes based on it. Copyright is almost always retained by the author under Gold Open Access, non-exclusive. However, in some cases, for example with society journals, a transfer of copyright is still required. So the main difference between copyright transfer and license to publish at its most basic level is that the copyright transfer requires transfer of copyright to a publisher or other entity such as the society, whereas the license to publish does not. Next slide, please. So this slide is just looking at what the motivations for publishing open access are. So to start with, it gives enhanced access and interrogation of data, allowing accelerated return on the public's investment in research and advancing the scientific process. It also enables discoverability and dissemination. So open access articles receive 18% more citations than average. It also democratizes access across all institutions, regardless of size or budget. It provides previously unattainable access to community colleges, two-year colleges, K-12 and other schools. And some stakeholders hope that it will reduce costs, profits of publishers, or force publishers to become more open. Next slide, please. So this slide covers market drivers. So some of the market drivers are as follows. So we have funder policies, big deal negotiations or read and publish, with open access becoming a core element. The growth of open access in different subject areas. For example, the growth of open access in global health is important, and there's an expectation that this content should be published open access, with organizations mandating it for their authors. The fact that authors can share work easily and without restriction with a wider audience. Changes of attitude within academic societies towards open access. Innovation in different types of publishing output, and access to publicly funded research. Next slide, please. So this slide just looks at the growth of Gold Open Access. So we took 2019 as an example, and there were an estimated 2.2 million subscription and 0.6 million open access articles published worldwide in 2019. And over the same year, open access represented an estimated 20% of the total amount of articles produced. Next slide, please. So this slide looks at the options for authors publishing open access at Cambridge. So we have a continually growing open access program. Currently, we have 35 gold open access journals, some of which are recent new launches and journals that have flipped from a subscription model. You can see covers showing examples of some of our fully gold open access titles here. Just to give some examples, so epidemiology and infection, primary healthcare research and development, and European psychiatry are all flipped journals. And gut microbiome is a new launch with the Nutrition Society. We also have 335 hybrid journals, so these are subscription journals with the option to publish open access. And then moving on to open research and the open research slide with content. So just touching upon open research. So what is it? So the open research movement seeks to maximize the impact and benefits of research by prioritizing barrier-free access to research data and methodologies. So for pre-publication, this can be in the form of grant awards, so peer review, tracking, etc. Collaborative working tools, registration of clinical trials, publishing papers in preprint servers, and infrastructures for hosting and sharing data and other non-traditional content. In terms of publication, this can be in the form of open access, gold and green, as we've just discussed, transparent peer review, open data and data linking, sharing materials, and negative and null findings. And then in terms of post-publication, this can be post-publication peer review and commenting, impact assessment, long-term preservation, and open resources for teaching and research. Next slide, please. So how to choose open access? It's important to consider whether green satisfies your needs as an author or whether gold would be better. If gold, then you'll likely have the choice between fully gold open access and hybrid journals. And your first step is to read the instructions for authors to determine how the open access option is made available or paid for. You also need to think about choosing the right license. So does your funder require a particular Creative Commons license, or does it require that copyright be retained, for example, with NIH employees? It's important to think about who pays for the article processing charge. Is this you directly from your grant funds, someone else? or your institution or consortium through a read and publish deal? And how can you promote your gold open access article or your green open access article? The best part about open access is its availability, so make good use of it. So I'll now move on to talking about should I publish open access, and look at the first slide is looking at what your journal's policy is. So journals and their publishers are working to make open access options available to their authors. So this can be through launching new gold open access journals, flipping subscription journals to a fully gold open access model where possible. Subscription journals have introduced hybrid options. Most journals have a clearly defined green open access deposit policy. Librarians and publishers have been working together to centralize funding for open access through read and publish and/or publish and read deals. And Neil will be talking about this in a bit more detail in a few slides' time. Moving on to the next slide. So the next important thing to think about is what your funders' policy is. All funders have different policies and requirements, so it's important to be familiar with what your funder is requiring. And this slide gives examples of some of the major funders. So just to name a few, there's the UKRI, the World Health Organization, the Wellcome Trust, European Commission, and so on. Next slide. And many of you may already be familiar with Plan S. I'm just going to talk about it in a bit more detail. So Plan S was announced in autumn 2018, and they updated their targets this past February. So they're aiming that after the 1st of January 2021, scientific publications of the results from research funded by public grants provided by national and European research councils and funding bodies must be published in compliant open access journals or on compliant open access platforms. So the goal is to facilitate the full transition to open access for the entire industry, not just Europe. And it's written in such a way that non-compliance by publishers could threaten their entire business. And another goal of Plan S is also to enable and encourage a reduced reliance on impact factors in the assessment of research and researchers. Next slide, please. So this slide runs through some of the Plan S or Coalition S signatories. So we have Austria with the Austrian Science Fund, Finland with the Academy of Finland, France with the Agence Nationale de la Recherche, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Slovenia, Sweden, Jordan, United Kingdom, United States, and some international organizations as well through the World Health Organization and Aligning Science Against Parkinson's. Next slide, please. So how can authors comply with Plan S? So to comply, authors must either publish in an approved open access journal or platform, immediately put a copy of the manuscript accepted by the journal or the final published article in an approved open access repository, or to use a hybrid journal that is covered by a transformative agreement and so intends to become a fully open access venue. Currently, Plan S states that the transformative agreements need to be in place by 2021. So this means that authors must vet publications to ensure that they meet Plan S requirements. And it also means a limitation of author choice. So there's a requirement to publish under certain licenses and restrictions against publication in subscription only and many hybrid journals, all post 2024. So there were some minor changes to Plan S made in February. So originally 2020 was the target, but that's now been moved to 2021. And Coalition S members may approve the use of the CC BY ND license for individual articles, provided that this is explicitly requested and justified by the grantee. Next slide, please. So looking at the next thing to consider is what your journal's green or sharing policy is. So since nearly all subscription or hybrid journals have a green open access option, it's important to look up the journal or publisher policies upon acceptance to see how to promote your work whilst respecting the copyright or license holder. And this table just gives a feel for some of the green open access policies at Cambridge. So if your manuscript is a preprint, so just been submitted to the journal and is under review, you can post it, that version of the manuscript, on any of these things. If it is an accepted manuscript, you can make this available on your personal webpage on acceptance, and in a department, institutional, or non-commercial subject repository 6 months after publication, and only make the abstract only available on a commercial repository. In terms of the version of record, you can only make the abstract version available on all of these things. So that just gives a feel for for our policies here at Cambridge. So I'm now going to hand over to Neil, who's going to tell you a bit more about read and publish agreements.
Great, thank you very much, Ali. Thanks for that. So, are you eligible for gold away through your institution? At Cambridge University, there's a deal in place currently whereby it's sort of split into two parts. There's a read element and there's a publish element. So the university has struck a deal whereby they pay a fee, and as part of that fee, there is unlimited publication for authors at Cambridge University of open access papers. The other element of that being that we grant access to Cambridge University to all of our journals, and researchers and students at Cambridge University are able to access all of the content within our journals that's on Cambridge Core. The read and publish agreement, as it says here, gives it the best of both worlds. It allows you to publish for free or waived with no APC, but it also allows you to read without restriction, as I said, all journals on Cambridge Core. We've been working for a number of years now on deals similar to this across the world. As you can see here, we have deals all over Europe, the US, Asia, and the Middle East, and continue to sign more. This is the way that with all of our deals, as I said earlier, all of our journals transform into open access. More of these deals will be required across the world so that researchers and students everywhere have the opportunity to submit and publish their work open access, meaning that it's freely available to anyone with an internet connection anywhere in the world. It spreads the content far and wide. It spreads the sharing of the knowledge and the work that's been done to anyone that's able to access. Just to go into a few particular details about the agreement between Cambridge University Press and Cambridge University, as I said, there is no APC, so the APC, the article processing charge, is a fee that is usually paid by the author to publish the work open access. This agreement takes away that requirement on the author and places it on the institution. So Cambridge University have paid a sum of money that covers, as I said, unlimited publication of open access articles. So as many open access articles as people want to publish from the university, we can accept. They go through the same peer review process. They're not treated any differently to a normal submission. There's no difference in the quality of the articles that we publish. As I said, the treatment from submission to publication is exactly the same as it would be for a non-OA article. If you are a researcher at the university or an author and you want to submit an article to ensure that your APC is covered by this deal, the corresponding author needs to be the person who submits the paper with their, as it says here, institutional email address. This will ensure that the APC is waived, and when nothing happens in the background, the paper will publish open access. A few more details there on corresponding author on our website. These links will be available at the end as well. Cambridge.org/corresponding author definition, and another link there, cambridge.org/OA-agreement-Cambridge, just for some more information on the deal there as well. And there's no restriction on where you can publish in our journals, as long as it's a fully open access journal or a subscription-based journal that offers hybrid open access, which, as Ali said earlier, we have over 35 OA journals and over 330 hybrid journals. So there's plenty of options for anyone there wishing to submit open access. As I said, this deal has already been agreed and paid for, so in terms of cost, there's no additional burden placed on the university, so the APC's cost has been covered. And submissions are limited, so don't be afraid of budgetary restraints or any extra money being needed. That's all been covered in the deal. So you submit your paper, it gets peer reviewed, and if it's accepted, it gets published, and everything else is covered in the background, costs, etc. And it will then appear on Cambridge Core. And that's a very brief overview there of the deal. It's very simple, as I said, but there are more details on the website there, or feel free to post any questions that you have now. The links that we have there, the OA agreement-Cambridge is for more information on the deal, corresponding author definition for more information on who the corresponding author is and how they need to go about submitting the paper in order to qualify as part of this deal. Two other links there you can see, cambridge.org/publish-OA. There's a series of resources, information, some more information on the benefits of publishing open access, and why we encourage you to do that. As we said before, there are no restrictions on access. Anyone with an internet connection anywhere can view it. Citations and downloads on a Cambridge Journal articles are higher and than the non-OA equivalents. We see more citations, we see more downloads, relatively speaking, to non-OA papers. So in terms of getting your research seen and read, open access is more beneficial for you. And the final link there, cambridge.org/OA Week 2020, is a link if you would like to sign up to our final webinar on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Which is going to be hosted by Claire Howe from our Beijing office, looking at open access development in China. So I'd encourage everyone to sign up to that as well. Thanks very much for listening. We'll have a look at questions now. We've had a couple come in. Just going to scroll. I'll just ask Ali and Nathan Turner from our sales team just to join me back on the call. And we'll just have a quick look at some of these questions. So, first one is there any time frame when CUP journals would be all open access? So, as Ali mentioned earlier, we put out a press release on Monday confirming our commitment to open access, confirming our request to have our journals referred to as transformative journals, which will put them in line with Plan S requirements. There is no time frame. This will happen over the next few years. The support from Coalition S will end in 2025, so that's the date that we're working towards. But we don't have a particular time frame, as we said, when we plan to do that. It will happen over the next few years. Ali, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Sorry, just checking that I'm unmuted. Yeah, so we did a press release earlier this week about the move to transformative journals. So this is a plan for our hybrid journals. with the aim that they'll fit in with the Plan S Transformative programme. Will be increasing the share of research that they publish open access each year. And the aim is that we'd eventually flip them to fully open access when that level of open access content reaches 75%. And also as part of the Transformative programme pledge, we're going to be actively promoting the benefits of open access to authors to encourage take-up. So I'd recommend reading the press release to get a bit more background on the Transformative programme and what we're planning here.
Great, thanks, Ali. We've had another question through asking whether it was the spiraling costs of journal subscriptions that were the greatest market driver of a sort of shift to open access publishing. Nathan, I'm not sure if you want to field that one.
It's a good question. I think it's a bit of both, really, in terms of balancing the cost of subscriptions and also opening up access to scholarly content, and it's trying to find a good balance between the two. It certainly isn't the idea wasn't to add subscription costs and APC costs together. And indeed, quite a few of the deals we've been doing around the world have been sort of cost neutral, and it's been the shift from paying for subscriptions to paying to publish in the journals.
Great, thanks, Nathan. Next question we have here: is there an email we can contact for OA queries? There is, and it is oaqueries@cambridge.org. Nice and simple. That's oaqueries@cambridge.org. We have another question here. Are OA articles available for everyone on auto access, or do you have to be part of an institution to access them? No, they're fully available to anyone with an internet access who's able to get online. If you were to come to Cambridge Core and you weren't part of an institution, there would be articles that you weren't able to access because they're part of a subscription package. But open access articles are freely available to everyone on Cambridge, on different platforms. That's the real benefit of open access, is that readership is unlimited, and anyone with an internet article is able to access them, download them, cite them, etc. And depending on the license we use and repurpose some of the work.
And there's books too as well.
Yeah, open access books are also becoming more popular. We have over 60 open access books that we publish now that are available on Cambridge Core as well. They are funded by a book processing charge, which is different to the article processing charge. But yeah, open access books really starting to become more popular now as well. Yeah. Okay, we had a couple of pre-submitted questions, so I'm just going to go into those now. Ali, I think I'll aim this one at you. Do you have anything in particular to help researchers who don't have funding for APCs and who aren't part of Read and Publish deals?
So yes, we offer waivers for authors from the Research for Life developing countries list. So list A gets 100% waiver, and B gets 50% waiver. And we also have a discretionary waiver scheme for gold open access journals. So if authors don't have funding and aren't from developing countries, they can apply for a waiver by providing a signed letter from their institution confirming that no funding is available.
Great, thanks, Ali. The second question we have, we've kind of covered this: how is CUP complying with Plan S? As we said, we released a press release earlier this week around our commitment to transforming our journals to open access, fully open access. When the open access level within those journals reaches 75%. And we're working with authors and we're working with journals to actively promote the benefits of open access to encourage this take-up, because, as we said, the benefits are clear. It's freely available, there's unlimited access. citations, downloads, etc. are higher for open access papers versus non-open access papers. So we'll continue to work as we do to promote those articles and journals. There's also a question here, Nathan, regarding the deal. How long is the agreement in place for with Cambridge University?
So we are negotiating them a year at a time. So the current deal is in place until the end of this year. And any articles that are submitted up until the end of December will be part of the deal. And then obviously we are negotiating for a deal for next year. So I don't see it going away.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. A couple more questions have come in the chat live. How will the publishers get their future income? Nathan, again, I'm going to send this one to you again.
Thanks, Neil. So could you repeat the question because you broke up a little bit?
Yeah, sure. How will publishers get their future income?
I think it's a difficult one. It'll be a balance between some of the money coming in for articles. Obviously, at the moment, we still have our subscription-based journals as well, and also things like digital archives that are available. And all of that will fill in and fit in to income for the press. Obviously, we're a not-for-profit publisher, so it's important that we have some lines of income to help invest in things like Cambridge Core and things like that. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Nathan. One more question here. Can articles be made open access after they've already been submitted and accepted? Yeah, they can. If they are an institution that has a read and publish deal, they can be made open access retroactively. And we have communications that go out. If you have submitted an article which could have been published open access, you may get an email saying, did you know you could publish open access? Would you like to now publish it open access and make the most of the benefits of it being open access? And there's more information around that on our website as well. If you go to the cambridge.org/publish-OA, there's more information from that page on our resources page.
Just to add, obviously the Cambridge deal didn't begin officially until about March this year. So there are quite a few articles that were submitted between January and March that are eligible to be made OA. So I'm sure that people with the authors of those will have been contacted, but they're definitely eligible to be converted.
Great, thanks, Nathan. One more question here. Are there any plans to include open access books or book chapters in read and publish deals? Nathan, again, I don't know if you want to have a go at that one.
In terms of read and publish, it's a bit different because it's journals and it's replacing essentially replacing kind of subscriptions with a read and publish model, whereas print where books is a bit of a different kettle of fish in that regard. So I don't believe so, but I can always put the question to the people that might know.
Yeah, we can chase that up from some other people internally and try and get you a proper answer there. I think it's worth noting that even as part of outside read and publish deals, the book publishing charge is understandably considerably more than an article processing charge. So that will need to be taken into account in any deals. But as we said, we'll try and get you a bit more sort of slightly firmer information on that. Okay, I think that's it. I don't think we have any more questions. I'd just like to thank Nathan and Ali for your time today. As we've said at the beginning, this recording is going to be made available after the session. We'll email it round, and we'll also put together some FAQs for any questions that we didn't really answer fully or could answer with a bit more detail. But again, thanks to Ali and Nathan. Thanks to you all for attending today. And as I say, if you'd like to join us on Friday, check the link. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks very much.